when Newton plays, the world feels. I'm here today with Antonio Newton, legendary bassist, and the power behind some of Motown's biggest artists. The Supremes, The Temptations, Stevie Wonder, The Four Tops, Martha and the Vandellas. My gosh, it just goes on and on and on. Well, we're going to talk about all of those in a minute. But first, before we start, I'd like to start by asking just how many instruments do you play?
A lot of people ask me that particular question. I think it's somewhere 12 to 15, somewhere in there. But I'm only focused on the bass and piano these days. I don't focus on the rest of them because there's a family of saxophones, a family of clarinets, a family of flutes, and that's how the number gets up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I haven't made that circle back to those instruments yet.
I mean, I guess why I asked that question is when you think about an artist and you try to place them in some type of category, which is what people typically do. It's, you're classified a certain way. You're a genius if you can play, so many different types of instruments, and so you've been referred to as legendary, and so talk to me a little bit about.
Well, the instruments do influence me.
Okay.
Like Robbie Krieger from The Doors says, he hears my saxophone playing influence in them. I don't hear it, but he hears it. And they all contribute to my musicality and the way I think when I'm composing and arranging. And I think that's the biggest benefit that they all bring to me, right? They still culminate in my consciousness as I'm a vehicle, for whenever I'm, like I say, performing, writing, or those two, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the answer to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, for example, if you have a song that you're writing, you would hear a piano a certain way versus the way you might hear a drum, or versus the way you might hear a string or something like that? Or?
Well, let me give you another example.
Okay.
I have a tremendous left hand on the piano, and that's from playing bass. And so everybody recognizes that right away. Right.
Okay.
And so because I do things that most people don't do with their left hand.
Got it. Well, another thing that you've mentioned that you do that not everybody can do is you're both classically trained and you're street trained, and so you stated that you can get into a studio and you can listen to or adapt to the artist.
Yes, this is a spiritual thing, I think, but it's still a musical thing. But you have to be spiritually aware to be able to do it, and that's become at one with whatever situation you're in. Like, you don't play with Stevie Wonder the same way you would play with the Supremes or Martha and the Vandellas, or the Mamas and the Papas. Each one of these artists have their own particular specific dimension and creative area that they like to express themselves in, and you have to figure out what can I do to make them sound good, or whatever it is they're doing. I mean, I've come from sessions where people are singing in your ear, play this one, boom, 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 to where it's all written out, right? Then they'll say, well, play what you want, play in between, you take the chart and you can play it, right? But you go beyond the music that's on the paper. So it takes a certain amount of awareness and skill to be able to do that, especially to see something on. But you're doing it now. I mean, you're improvising.
Right.
And this is the same thing in music with different artists, right? So you're interacting with me, and you're tuning in to me, and so it's the same situation, right? Same energy and way of thinking, right?
That's interesting because when I think of the bass, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm no musician, when you think of the bass holds the tempo, and so how are you really able to improvise with that when you're?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Like, if I can play boom, 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 I can play that, right?
Mhm,
Or else
mhm.
I can play boom, 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 right?
And you're doing all of this.
Yeah, yeah, right. And
And it
I just
doesn't.
improvise all of that like we are sitting here, right?
Mhm.
And so different ideas come to you, um, but you have to be in the moment, right? You have to
Yeah.
be in the moment, relaxed and free, so that the music flows through you and it has meaning and is real.
Right. And so you say that that's spiritual. It's not something that can be taught, or is it something that you kind of learn from hanging around other people in the
Both.
studios?
It's
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
It's all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's experiential.
Mhm.
You can be taught it, people, but you can only learn it from other studio musicians. My motto is, and I've learned this from sports or whatever, or whoever, is behind every great musician or whatever they are, behind every great person, there's a great teacher. Right, and so you learn, just like for me, there was all older musicians, right, and they um, clued me in when I was doing the wrong thing and when I was doing the right thing. And so then it's about experience. Um, because if you're a studio musician, you definitely have to have the skill to tune into each artist and play what they need for that particular recording and that particular song, even, right? Each song is different. So you have to be able to play music, not just sit there and, do something rote. It has to come from your heart, and it has to be magical, because that's what a recording is. It's magic captured on the tape or whatever, computer, right, these days. And so um, it's, I say it's a spiritual thing, because you have to get to that level where you're in the moment. You're at one with the music. Because if you're not at one with the music and you're present somewhere else, it ain't gonna happen. And you're not gonna be there either, right? You'll be out of there. And so, but if because you have to play with your heart, mind, and soul, and be in touch with the artist's direction and expression.
Okay, so I understand that, but I also understand that some of it comes from your training.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So yes,
You have to have the skill.
Yeah, okay.
Right? I mean, because if you can't play, you can't read music.
Mhm.
I mean, there are people that, I'll give you an example. Wah Watson, he was a great wah player. And he played a lot of the Motown stuff, right? You can hear him on Papa's Rolling Stone, boom, boom, right? And so he didn't read music. And so, but he was so good and great, didn't matter, right? His brain was good enough that he could scope out the form of the song and bring what it needed. And I played with a few musicians, just like in my group TNT Extreme. I've got everything written out, but sometimes um, uh, there's a guitar player, Tommy Organ. He played with me. He played on "This Is It" with Michael Jackson. He can't read, but his brain is very sharp, and he can feel and be creative, right? So the first thing, if you can't read music, you have to be good enough to have some magic in your blend, right? Something that everybody wants, that's magical and recognizable and obvious, right? It has to be obvious to everyone there that you know what you're doing, and whatever it is you're playing that's making it happen.
So, would you consider those people geniuses? Because you said
Oh,
that
yeah.
you said that you're not a genius. You said that work hard.
I work hard. Right.
Right.
Well, it's a certain amount of genius that it takes to do that. So, yeah, they're in the category of genius. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, no doubt about it.
So, well, let's talk a little bit about your influences. I find it to be quite interesting. You've done R&B, you've done big band, orchestra?
Right,
Orchestra, yeah, like that's
right.
pretty eclectic.
Well, that's part of my street and school.
Okay.
Right. So my stepmother played a lot of like Little Richard and Elvis and all that as I was upcoming, but I was still going to school, right? And then I was like, I've studied all the classical composers, but I feel the closest to Beethoven. And there's pianists like Chopin and Liszt that I also feel close to, and I've learned a lot from them. And so it's I have influences from, I have a pedigree of teachers, right? Like I said, behind every great person there's a great teacher.
Yeah.
Well, I made sure that I would only learn from great teachers. Like as a bass player, I learned from the great James Jamerson. Right, as a pianist, I had teachers from Chopin and Don Yanyi. And so, because I wanted to play at that level, right, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to be great, right? I didn't want to settle for anything less.
Right.
And so, and I was willing to put in the work, right? And so, that's what it took. But I know and I understand, and I like to impart this, like to all my students, they know what's going on the minute they sit down with me, that this is a master class, because I don't teach what other people teach. I mean, I teach the basics, but I teach about energy. I tell them to close their eyes and feel the music as you're playing it, not just playing the damn notes. Right. Because if the notes are not going to touch anybody, you're not playing music, you're not making music, right? And so all of these things are important, and the influences, you deepen and broaden your influences as you go along. Like I say, being able to play, like I played the blues and played Motown, all those artists, and I played tons of other artists that you haven't heard of in Detroit that had one-hit wonders, and then I played on rock, and I'm one of the creators of jazz, rock, fusion, and new age music, right? And my own direction, I don't call it classical, I call it contemporary. Okay. Like my symphony is contemporary. And so, but I've expanded, because the usual symphony is 4 movements, 3 or 4 movements. Mine is 7. And so I'm always broadening, and I don't give myself any limits, because I don't need to. I don't have a damn record company telling me what to do or any of that shit, right? And so I can explore myself to its fullest whenever I need to, and that's all the time, because I want to be the best that I can be.
That's a very interesting statement. So, having been one of the original architects of jazz rock fusion that, penned some of the classic compositions like Snake Oil, people have a tendency to place you on this pedestal in terms of, what they expect. And as you just stated, you're not going to be put in a box, but how does that impact your marketing or your stay around ability? And
Right. You have to create your own damn niche. That's what's happening these days, right? It used to work in the old days where, prehistoric days, before the internet, where everybody was pigeonholed, and you had to do what the record company wanted, and you stay in that direction. Whereas music evolves like everything else, right? And the artistry evolves. It's just like art in general evolves because it's a reflection of society. If it's actually true, real art, it's sensitive to what's going on. And so it's up to you to, let's put it this way, you can create your own limitation, your own form, your own boundaries, right? And so that's what I do, is I create, like if I'm creating a symphony, I know what boundaries I have within this form. I know what rules I can break and what rules I can't break in order to make it sound like that. Now, my record, the White Light, my recording, the White Light Collection, okay, ultimately I want music, my music, to touch you. I want it to be the soundtrack of your life. I want it to influence you to your potential. So I don't want it to be one-dimensional. It's like food. Mm-hmm. All right, you get different tastes, and you can fuse them together, and you can do them individually. And that's what I did. Now, as far as a record company, I'm my own damn record company, so I can do what I want, right? And so that has its challenges, but at the same time, people like Prince and Ray Charles and James Brown, like I said, every great person is, other great people. They did what they wanted to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so, just like Prince, the record company wanted to hold him, hold him up. You can't leave us, right? He broke his contract, and he figured the shit out. It's like, oh, well, I'm the artist formerly known as Prince, and all his fans knew who he was, right? So that would make a bit of difference. Mm-hmm. So he did what he wanted to do. All of us have seen the movie Ray, and Ray always created his own direction, right? And because there's a point where it depends either way. All artists want to go what's inside of them. And you can hold it back if you want to, mm-hmm. but that's not going to create a good, creative, and successful relationship. So I was watching Mariah Carey and Whitney on Reels a couple of days ago, and they were the same way. Mm-hmm. They did what they wanted, but each of them had a record company that wanted a certain sound, like they wanted to pigeonhole Mariah as pop. Well, she didn't see herself as pop, right? And the same thing with Whitney. Mm-hmm. And so both of them took two different directions in lots of ways. However, they did explore, the fullness of their talent. And so you cannot do that. Let's say if I only wanted to play one instrument, mm-hmm. and then I could limit myself to the one instrument, right? And only study that. And even within that, there are limitations or boundaries. I can play only this type of music. Like I could have been just a classical musician that plays what's on the paper. Well, I didn't want to do that. It was a good training, and it's a good skill to have, but it's not all that inspiring when you are a creative person. And none of the classical composers, they weren't, they weren't pigeonholed. They did what they wanted to do, right? That's why the music is timeless.
Is that something that only legendary people can do, or is it something that you would, encourage even incoming artists?
I would encourage any artist to follow their heart, which is one of my songs, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the only way you're going to get to the true essence of who you are. And that's the best place to be to produce the best outcome, creative outcome, right? Your mm-hmm. creative vision is to do what's in your heart. Like I said, everybody has a creative talent. Yeah. And they have at least 2 or 3 of them. And so if they have musical talent, they should follow what they do and what they do best. Because it's still going to take lots of time to develop that. This ain't going to happen overnight, yeah. right? Yeah. And so if you stay within that, then you're going to develop and keep developing towards your potential.
So you've got the title legendary because of the
amount of work.
Right. Is it possible for an up-and-coming artist to be legendary now? I mean,
No.
yeah. Okay.
Legendary means you've done a lot of stuff over a period of lot of time.
Okay.
Right, like I've done hit records from the 60s to now. Right, that's legendary. And so the other part, I'm creative and innovative in what I do, whether it's playing or composing or performing. Right. And I consider myself, if we get down to it, it's sort of like I'm a cross between Beethoven, Motown, and Miles. I'm the Hendrix on the bass, if Hendrix was still alive today, but playing the bass instead of the guitar. However, I'm more evolved than that musically, more expansive, right? So I can do other things because of my compositional and pianistic skills. So that's where I'm at today, and I don't want to hold myself back. That's the road that I particularly specifically took, right?
And so do you feel like, I mean, there are, of course, the people who have been around and they consider themselves like true lovers of music and true musicians that just rip the new artists today because they're in the studios and they're not using the instruments the way that they do. But you tend to do things outside of the box. So what's your take on music, where it is, where it's going? Do you think it's crap? Do you think it's evolving? Like, what's your take on it?
It's evolving, but at a very small pace. I think we can look throughout history. Let history tell the story when it comes to timeless music, and all of it was made with real people and real instruments. Sure, you can use computers to create music, right? And it can be a good thing. I mean, just like, let's say, house or acid, that's all computer and stuff like that. And it's valid. I mean, but say there are composers that use, John Cage was the first one to use like radios and synthesizers, and Martin Sabatnik and all of that. They started to use, let's put it this way, technology is a tool of expression. Okay. It's not the end result. If it becomes the end result, then you're not going to touch anybody with the music. Now, the music of today needs to be more in depth because it needs to touch people. It does. See what's happening? It's de-evolved, so people accept. What's the word? I call it generic, right? Because the radio had a lot to do with programming people's heads, right? Because
song,
right,
little loop,
right, over and over, and they're programming.
Used to it.
Right. As much as I like rap, it's evolving, but at the same time, it's taken a lot of negative things and spread that. Hopefully that means it's a wake-up call for us, right? Because I'm not speaking negatively against it, even though it could evolve faster. Gil Scott-Heron, the original poet, his rapping was deep and meaningful. And so I like LL Cool J and their stuff is really great. Snoop is a monster as far as I'm concerned, right? I'd like to work with him one day. And so there are certain rap artists that have raised the level of consciousness, and then there are certain other ones that keep it on the gang level, which is not benefiting anybody, not on a world scale, right? But these days, you have people in China and Japan want to be gangsters and stuff like that from the music. And I'm not interested in calling women bitches and hoes and stuff like that, because it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right message to be spreading. So a woman, you wouldn't do that shit to your mother, would you?
Right.
Right?
I would hope not.
Right, exactly. And your mother is a woman, right? You're going to be calling her those names.
Exactly.
So that's where I'm coming from with that. So I'm here to show people that they can do what the fuck they want to do, and that they need to follow their heart and go and express themselves at the highest level of their creative expression.
Nice. So, what's next for Tony Newton?
Well, I'm promoting this. I need help, right? Because I've been doing everything myself, and I want to get my music out there to as many people. I have tons of projects in the archives, like I have, there are people that only, a lot of people just see me bass and then they see me playing piano. Oh, I didn't know you played piano, right? And then there's others that like everything that I do, right? And so, because I've got musicals in my symphony, I want that to be heard. So, the quest for me now is to get the exposure to the world and take care of it, because music is a business.
It is.
So it's music business, and I need to be supported in order to keep doing this, right? I've been struggling and sacrificing my whole damn life to get to this point, right? And so it ain't easy, that's for damn sure, right? It's just that I've been doing it for so long that I'm kind of used to it, but I need support and help to go to the next level from my fans, from a business level, and from the industry, right? And so that's my next step, is to connect to all of that. That's why I like to engage with all my fans online, because I can connect with them. I get emails and messages all the time about how my music has changed their life and helped them in some type of way, which is what I want to hear, because that's why I'm creating the music, right? I just want that to spread more. And like you say, people tend to think in compartments, right? However, I'm breaking those bonds in what I'm doing, and people are accepting it now because we're in an age of evolution. And when I say evolution, that means personal growth and enrichment. We're all expanding. That's what we should be doing, right? We shouldn't hold ourselves back. That's why we can't fucking get along with each other, because we're holding ourselves back, right? And that's not the plan. I know everyone knows that that's not the plan, right? And so that's my next step.
Your next step.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been absolutely an honor to sit down with you and just learn so many different things that we didn't know. So we hope that your fans and the rest of the world have enjoyed it as much as I have, and that they'll reach out to you and we can see you really soon at that next level.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amber.